start, Rooney met with reporters yesterday in Palm Beach, Florida, at the NFL annual meeting, and most of the questioning, predictably, was about Aaron Rodgers. One of those questions was what Rooney thought about Rodgers hooking up with DK Metcalf to have that informal throwing session a couple days ago.
I mean, I would say it was a good sign that he wanted to do that, and we keep hearing that he's I guess headed in our direction, and so that seems to be all signs are positive so far.
Yeah, encouraging. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots, Penguins and Pirates, in the same place that you found this. Rooney made abundantly clear through that response and a handful of others in that session yesterday that he's all the way on board. He wants to see Rodgers be the quarterback in Pittsburgh. And he became the third individual this week high up in that hierarchy. The other two, of course, being Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan, to basically say it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Rodgers is going to be the Steelers quarterback. I have some questions, however, about some of this. 2 Januaries ago, I sat in a room with Rooney as part of his annual get-together with select reporters on the South Side, and that session also was dominated by quarterback talk, beginning with Rooney himself pointing out that it should be the Steelers' number one priority, that they really need to get quarterback right, and a lot of that on his end was spent praising Mason Rudolph. I quote directly, I think Mason really showed, number one, I think he did show what we're capable of on offense with the personnel that we have here right now. That's encouraging in terms of Mason's ceiling, let's say. I don't know that we've seen his ceiling yet. After a few other sentences, he added, we appreciate what Mason did, and we're interested in bringing Mason back, period, end quote. Narrator, they did not bring Mason back. Mason never received an offer from the Steelers. He ended up in Nashville, of course. And whatever it was that Rooney said in that meeting that he wanted to see happen, or expected to see happen, didn't come close to actually happening. Stay with me on this. Flash forward to just 3 months ago. It's January again. It's the Rooney session again. I'm there again. When the quarterbacks came up, those quarterbacks now, of course, being Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, Rooney said that bringing both of them back would be, quote, probably unlikely, end quote. He continued, I think they're both capable quarterbacks, and my preference would be to sign one of them. So that'll be the priority, and that'll give us the best opportunity to move forward. End quote. That's his preference. His word, not mine. His preference would be to sign one of them. He'd also be asked if the age difference between Wilson and Fields, and that was 10 whole years, would be a factor in this, and he responded, quote, yeah, I think you have to take that into consideration. That's a factor. Which sure sounded like his preference was Fields. He'd later go on to say that he thought Arthur Smith did a fine job despite having to deal with two very different quarterback styles and having to adapt accordingly, and that for 2025, he'd like to see the quarterback room in general made up of players with similar styles. And that, since he'd already made clear his preference for Fields, meant more mobility. So, flash forward to now, and again, nothing that he said, apparently, was taken seriously by anyone, or it wasn't taken seriously by him, meaning either that Tomlin or whoever just found a way to navigate around his preferences or things that he said publicly, or that the things that he says publicly don't mean anywhere near as much as whatever it is that he'll eventually hear from Tomlin. Listen, I don't want my owner of any franchise to be overly involved in sports decisions. That's perennial loser material. That's Jerry Jones stuff, okay? And I appreciate that Rooney isn't that guy, just as I would appreciate any owner of any team that I'd follow adopting the same approach. However, when the boss speaks, you'd like to think there'd be some weight to it. I've got, by the way, a bunch more of these I could read off to you, and they go back to the time when Rooney was pleading for a running game, only to go ignored. And I mean ignored for quite a while until eventually they did draft Najee Harris in the first round. This isn't a new pattern. This is the way this has been for a while. Plain and simple. The head coach runs the place. He runs everything about the place. And he has just enough of pull or sway or football-ish intimidation factor or whatever it is over the owner of the franchise that the owner of the franchise was comfortable standing there yesterday in front of reporters with that same smile that Tomlin had about bringing in somebody who fits none of these criteria that he laid out for us in January. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from Michael Walden, who says, Art Rooney, did you not say you wanted a younger, more mobile quarterback? I guess we can all just say stuff and not mean it publicly. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, DK. Well, I've shared some of those already in the opening segment, Mike, but I have this that I can add to the way you asked this question specifically. I don't think he doesn't mean it. I don't think for a second that Rooney's sitting there at that table in January, or for that matter, at that press gathering yesterday in Palm Beach, and thinking, wow, what can I say here that would be really misleading or would not be representative of what I'm thinking? I don't know that to be in his DNA. To put it another way, if he was super PR conscious, he would have handled all of those various questions the past couple of years about the NFL Players Association grades of the Steelers' ownership and their facilities and the cafeteria and the weight room and all that other stuff. He would have done it way more delicately than he did. I actually kind of liked the way he did. He just basically said, what? Seriously? You think that has an impact on us? You think that affects our winning and losing? That's not someone who's being briefed before they step into the room. I believe that he has believed what he has spoken as he's been in those settings. Now, yes, to be fair here, circumstances can change, stances can change. But when you see again and again and again that what the owner says doesn't play out and what the head coach says does play out, it doesn't take some sort of high-level college logic degree to see what's going on and who's really running things in one form or another. Not coincidentally, this is exactly the kind of thing that can explain why the morning after the Steelers are eliminated from the playoffs in Baltimore in an embarrassing way, getting gashed for 299 yards on the ground, completing a 5-game collapse, that Rooney's priority that morning, like the sun comes up, and his top priority was to find a way to get the word out to the public that nothing was going to happen to Tomlin. I got to be honest, I don't even want to know what leads into that type of thinking. I really don't. I've said this over the years in being deeply critical of Bob Nutting, the owner of the Pirates. But when you own one of these franchises, and doubly so, triply so, if you're owning a franchise as part of a family that's had it passed down from one generation to the next, you're operating with a higher calling. You're not just, quote unquote, running the business. You've got a responsibility to a certain level of stewardship of who the Pittsburgh Steelers are to the city of Pittsburgh, to their fans far and wide, and yes, even inside the family. And being excessively beholden to a head coach who hasn't won a playoff game in 8 years, that doesn't align. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.